And then, Scrooge is actually feeling really sorry for this man. And again, obviously, the irony in some ways is that it's going to be him, and he wants to actually find out if anyone feels any emotion caused by this man's death. And he's begging for it. He's begging to see the good in people again. He's begging to see the kind of the Tiny Tims and the his nephews of the world. To show kind of a softness. And it's very clever actually, this scene where kind of the only person happy about it is in the kind of one of the worst ways possible. There's basically, this man was a creditor of some kind, and he obviously, Scrooge, he kind of gave people money, or was in control of like their debt repayments, etc. And so the only person happy, or that has any he feels emotion, like actually cares in any way, feels something, and it's not even like it's a bad thing that he feels. This person, he actually feels kind of very relieved, because now that Scrooge is dead, he's not going to come calling for the money. So he says here, he obviously, this being Scrooge, or this person who's dying, was not only very ill but was dying. And then they say, to whom will our debt be transferred? And again, like, hit us with how horrible, it would be, how terrible like he was, because he says it would be a bad fortune indeed to find so merciless a creditor in his successor. So that's quite interesting. Again, like, there he's called merciless, and whereas just in the page before he asked for a form of mercy, like from the spirit, to actually say to him, don't make me look at the sheet. And then again, he's referred to as the person he was as being completely merciless. So that's obviously done purposefully to actually highlight to Scrooge his own failings, and his own kind of negativity, and the way he treats people. And then he's hurting him a lot, and he's feeling really bad about it. And the only emotion that the ghost could show him was one of pleasure. So this man dying just made some other people happy, and it gave other people a great laugh, etc., etc., etc. So I mean, that's really written to actually show us how despised this man is, so he'll die and people have a genuine reason to be happy. And he says, please let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or to which we just left, will be for all that dark chamber will be forever present to me. So he'll just always have that man on mind. He doesn't, again, still at this point realise it's him, etc. So they go to the house of Bob Cratchit, and then at that point we look at we find that we're back with the Cratchits and in their situation, obviously with Tiny Tim, and obviously how sad it all is that he's passing, etc. Yeah, that he's passed, sorry. And the happiness here is kind of like an idea, not necessarily of, not of them being happy with regards to that death, but just of kind of a gratefulness in death itself. So there's not really anything to do with Scrooge or that man there in this section here, but it's just to do with, there is a better way to take death. Like, the family actually really mourned him, and they care about him, and they they say good things about him, etc., etc., etc. So here, I'm sure none of us will ever forget poor Tiny Tim, shall we? And this, or the first parting that there was among us, in terms of like death and leaving the family. And obviously all of them cry, never father. And again, they all cry when he says a bit more, no, never father. And that's really interesting to see how one person's death is dealt with, and this is kind of the real goodly, young, innocent, cheerful, great boy, as opposed to this person who we know soon to be Scrooge, lying there dead. So that's going to be a huge contrast, and Scrooge didn't want his memory to be just the one that people didn't care about, because it was too hard hitting for him. So maybe in this, again, in it letting him see this, there is a mercy. And in saying that, then Scrooge moves on, and he's actually moving on himself a little now, and he's saying, tell me, I know my time is short, I want to try and get in as much as possible, etc., etc. So they go, they're going to go back to where Scrooge wants to see himself, because he wants to see what he's actually going to learn for himself. So he goes to his place of work, and basically he thinks he's going there, but there's actually a graveyard next to it. And it's quite interesting, obviously, that he ends up in here, a churchyard, where they've actually got the tombstones, etc. Obviously, because this is all basically the churchyard. Obviously, it's not just death per se, but obviously it's a gateway to the afterlife, as Marley's reckoning of it is. So it's very important that we've got that there. He's not dying, or he's not found. He wasn't seen as the man. He didn't realise it when he saw the man on the sheet, or when he realised there was a man on the sheet, because if he did that, then it wouldn't have the same religious connotations. It has to happen here in the graveyard, so it kind of has all the religious connotations and all the after effects that will come because of what he has done. So yeah, he kind of goes along, and Scrooge actually really starts to stress, and he's really, really upset, and he says, look, please, before I draw nearer, are these shadows things that will be, or shadows things that only may be? So again, like, he's really agitated, and he wants it. Obviously the emphasis is there, showing that he actually wants to make sure that he can actually change it. And then he kind of pleads with him, because the ghost, again, the ghost of the future is just saying, look, this is done, nothing can change, we can't discuss this, these are the things that will happen, and men's causes will foreshadow certain ends, to which if preserved they must lead, but if the causes be departed from, if I change, will all of this change? Say it thus with what you show me. So he's begging him, and probably obviously he's got a huge inclination that it's going to be him that he sees, and then he gets to the actual point there, and the gravestone, and he actually finds his own name, and then he says, am I the man who lay upon the bed? And he cried upon his knees, and he's just he's completely sunk and beaten. And it's really important there that he's on his knees, because that's a pleading, that's a begging, that's a nothingness, that's a really low position to be in, and obviously he's begging for mercy, begging for change. So again, always when you're talking about the way he changes, because most essays on Scrooge in Christmas Carol, are about Scrooge and his change, you're always going to talk about the kind of physical aspects actually that go along with it as well. Obviously it gets to him, and again we've got the repetition of no, and he realises that he can't actually do anything about it, and he says, Spirit, hear me, I'm not the man I was, I will not be the man I must have been, but for this intercourse, why show me this if I'm past all hope? And so he's begging with him, hear me, first of all, please, I'm not the man I was. And obviously this declaration here, you can read into it in so much, and obviously with that man, what I'd probably analyse here isn't just kind of like, I've changed, but analyse all the characteristics, all the things that he actually thinks he's going to change, and that he's seen, and all the humiliations that he's seen of himself, and obviously how that would be very difficult for him to actually live with and take. And then he asks, for pity, and assure me that I may change. And then basically he makes all these promises about how it'll change. I will honour Christmas in my heart, keep it all the year. And that's also the kind of a second reference that obviously Dickens would be getting at. It's not just, Christmas isn't just for Christmas, as if that was such a really put sentence, apologies. Christmas isn't just for Christmas. Christmas is supposed to be like a time for honing or reminding yourself of how you should be for the rest of the year. So Scrooge is actually taking that lesson on board now. He knows he has to be good all year round, and he promises, that he'll always bear in mind the past, the present, and the future of what he's learned, and that they all shall strive within me. He's his transformation now, like the character Saul, who becomes Paul. He's not going to shut out any lessons, and please, he says, let me sponge away the writing on this stone. Let me change. And it's not just the writing on his stone in terms of like him being dead, but it's also in terms of the record of deeds which he has for himself.